I was working at a hotel front desk in Barcelona when an American couple checked in at midnight. They looked exhausted. The wife immediately asked me where they could find a normal shower because, and I quote, "the one in the room doesn't work right." I went to check it out. Nothing was broken. The shower was perfectly fine. But here's the thing. It was one of those European handheld shower heads. No fixed shower head mounted to the wall. The husband was standing there holding it like it was a broken toy. He kept saying, "What am I supposed to do with this?" I realized in that moment that this couple had booked a 2-week trip through 5 countries without understanding that the entire world doesn't operate on the same system they grew up with. And spoiler alert, their confusion was just getting started. I've been collecting these stories for years, and honestly, they never stopped being fascinating to me. If you've ever wondered why traveling completely rewires how you see the world, this is exactly the kind of thing I love breaking down here. These stories happen all the time. I've been collecting them for years. Americans traveling abroad, Americans moving overseas for work, Americans thinking the world will just adapt to them. And honestly, it's kind of endearing how shocked they get when it doesn't. So let me take you through what happens when Americans leave home and realize home is the weird one. Like, there was this girl who worked at a cafe in Berlin with me. She was from Texas, had been there 6 months. She went to her first German office meeting and kept trying to make small talk with her coworkers. She was asking about their weekends, their families, their hobbies. They all just stared at her. Finally, her boss pulled her aside and explained that German business culture is different. You show up, you do your job. You don't become friends with everyone. She thought they were cold. They thought she was unprofessional. Then there's the whole payment situation. I watched an American at a restaurant in Prague try to leave money on the table like it was a Vegas buffet. In the US, you tip everywhere, and tip culture is built in. In Prague, you absolutely pay at the counter or hand money directly to the server. Leaving cash on the table while you walk out? That's seen as rude or like you're too good to hand it over. The waiter was genuinely confused. The American was confused why he was confused. That conversation took 10 minutes and a lot of hand gestures. One more quick one before we get into the deep stories. My cousin moved to Amsterdam and called me absolutely baffled on day 2. She said the mailman had marked her mail not at home, even though she was home. She kept the mail from being delivered. The issue? In the Netherlands, you have to tell the post office when you're home if you want them to deliver. They don't just drop stuff off whenever. They need a signal. My cousin thought someone was stealing her packages. Nope. The entire system just works differently. These situations are everywhere. And the thing is, Americans aren't stupid. They just grow up in a country so big and so economically powerful that everything is designed around American convenience. The whole world runs on 110 volts here. Credit cards work everywhere. Everyone speaks English in your neighborhood. Then you step outside, and suddenly none of that is true. Let's start with something universal. Travel confusion. My friend Marcus spent 3 weeks in Tokyo without understanding their train system. Not because it was complicated, but because he kept expecting it to work like New York. In New York, you can figure out the subway with general intuition. In Tokyo, there's an actual method, and you need to pay attention to it. Marcus bought a single ticket instead of getting a pass. He was buying individual tickets to every single stop. A trip that cost 150 yen with a pass was costing him 500 yen. He didn't realize for a full week. When his Airbnb host finally told him, he said, "So it's like smart?" "Yes, Marcus. It's like smart. But the train thing goes deeper." Europeans have figured out train travel for centuries. Their systems are efficient. Americans? We basically gave up on trains. So when Americans go to Europe for the first time, they're shocked by how well trains work. My coworker took a train from Munich to Vienna and came back like he'd discovered fire. The train was clean. It was on time. I could buy a sandwich without leaving my seat. Yes, that's called infrastructure. That's what happens when a society invests in public transportation. Then there's hotel stuff. I worked in a boutique hotel in Dublin, and we had this constant issue. Americans would book these old Irish townhouse hotels, beautiful places with actual character. No elevators because the building was built in 1820. Narrow stairs, low doorways, high ceilings in some rooms, tiny bathrooms. Americans would arrive and immediately want to change rooms because their expectations were all based on Holiday Inn. They wanted the room to be like an American hotel. They were angry at us for selling them a room that was exactly what we showed them in the pictures. One time, a guest asked if we could update the room to have a bigger bathroom. I tried to explain that the bathroom was part of a 200-year-old building. We couldn't just expand it. She asked if there was another room with a better bathroom. I showed her. It was the same age, same size. She booked another hotel. And here's the thing. I get it. You pay for a hotel room. You expect a certain standard. But the standard isn't universal. You're not paying for a Marriott. You're paying for an experience in a different place. That's the deal. My girlfriend's sister went to Thailand and had a complete meltdown about the toilet situation. In some older places, you don't get a Western toilet. You get a squat toilet. She called her mom crying because she didn't know how to use it. Her mom, bless her, video called her and walked her through it. Over video, while she was in a Thai bathroom. That's peak American travel right there. Measurements are their own special hell. I dated an American girl who moved to Australia. She went to the grocery store and bought what she thought was a small pasta sauce. It was 1 liter. She was confused why everything was so expensive. Then she realized the price was per kilogram, not per pound. Everything was more expensive in her head because she didn't know how to translate. She started keeping a mental calculator running just to grocery shop. After 6 months, she still defaulted to pounds in her head. She'd be at the register thinking, wait, that's like 2.2 pounds, so... It's exhausting living in that conversion space. Tipping is a whole culture shock on its own. I watched an American at a London restaurant leave a 20% tip in cash. The server thought she'd made a mistake. In the UK, tipping isn't really a thing like it is in America. You might tip a little if the service was amazing, but 20% is excessive. The server was genuinely concerned that this American woman had overpaid her by mistake. She tried to give the money back. It was awkward. The American felt good about being generous. The server felt uncomfortable about the generosity. Nobody won. Time zones destroy people. My brother went to the Philippines and completely lost track of time. He'd call people during their sleep because the time difference was so extreme. He once tried to schedule a work call thinking it was morning in New York. It was 3 a.m. He called his boss at 3 a.m. Eastern Time. His boss did not appreciate the good morning message. My brother didn't understand that good morning on his end meant middle of the night on the other side of the world. He thought good morning was universal. Hotel tipping is an actual issue. In America, you tip the hotel staff. Housekeeping, bellhops, valet, everywhere. I watched an American at a nice hotel in Spain not understand why she should tip housekeeping. She said, "They're already paid by the hotel, right?" Yes, but in American culture, you still tip them. In other places, you don't necessarily. There's no universal rule. The American got defensive about it like someone was trying to scam her. And air travel is its own mess. Americans tend to board planes like it's their last chance to survive. Other countries board way more calmly. Zone by zone. Organized. Americans see the plane and think, if they don't run, they'll lose their seat. The chaos is real. Every single flight I've been on with Americans, there's this rush to get up the second the boarding door opens. Other nationalities just wait. They know the plane isn't leaving without them. The seats are assigned. It's fine, but Americans have this panic energy. Let's talk about geography. An American tourist in Rome asked me where the Roman Empire was. Not historically, currently. She thought it was a country you could visit. When I explained that Rome was the capital of Italy and the Roman Empire ended about 1,500 years ago, she looked disappointed. She said, So there's no Roman Empire theme park or something? No, history doesn't work that way. Geography confusion is actually everywhere. I worked with an American who thought the Netherlands and Denmark were the same country. When his girlfriend said she wanted to visit both, he was confused why. He thought she meant like visiting two neighborhoods in the same city. They're two completely separate countries. They don't even share a border. But to him, they were the same vague Nordic area. Europe is huge, but Americans sometimes compress it in their minds. Maps are fascinating. Americans grow up learning a certain map layout, the Mercator projection. It distorts sizes. Africa looks smaller than it actually is. Greenland looks the way bigger. Americans get genuinely shocked when they find out that Africa is actually huge and Greenland is tiny. One girl I knew had a mini existential crisis about this. She called it map fraud. She felt betrayed by her elementary school education. My buddy went to Switzerland and asked his hotel concierge where to find the main part of Switzerland. He thought there was a downtown or capital area where everything happens. The concierge was confused because Switzerland is all main parts. It's a small, organized country. There isn't a worse area to avoid. It's all pretty nice. My buddy was expecting Swiss slums. They don't really exist in the same way. Capital cities were another thing. An American girl I worked with was confused why Paris, France, wasn't a separate city from France itself. She thought France was a big region and Paris was a different thing, like how Los Angeles is in California but more separate. I explained that Paris is a city, France is a country. She said, I know that, but like as tourist attractions, they're separate, right? No, Paris is in France. It's not a standalone thing. Here's a wild one. I taught English in South Korea, and an American colleague thought Korea and China were neighbors in the way that states are neighbors in America. He kept saying things like, oh, we should take a weekend trip to China, like it was a 3-hour drive. Seoul to mainland China is a few hours by plane and involves crossing international borders and customs. Not a weekend trip for Americans without planning. But he kept talking about it like it was nothing. Languages are where people really struggle. An American girl went to Spain thinking that everyone would speak English because the world speaks English. They don't. About 25% of Europeans speak English. She was shocked. She thought being American was like having a secret universal translator. She ordered food by pointing at the menu for 2 weeks because she didn't want to try Spanish. Her friends eventually made her try using basic phrases. Turns out, people appreciate effort even if you speak badly. Number formats broke someone's brain. My girlfriend's coworker moved to Germany and couldn't understand why the price was written as $12.50 instead of $12.50. Different countries use different notation systems. Commas and periods mean different things. She thought her salary was lower than it actually was because she misread the format. She was upset for a whole week about a pay cut that didn't exist. Just a misunderstanding about notation. Date formats are equally confusing. Americans use month, day, year. Most of the world uses day, month, year. An American made an appointment thinking he'd scheduled it for February 3rd. It was actually March 2nd. He missed the appointment. Then he got mad at the office for scheduling him wrong. He didn't think about the fact that there's no universal date system. Measurement time is rough. I knew an American who moved to Canada and forgot that Canada uses metric. She was driving and saw a speed limit sign for 100. She thought people were going crazy fast. 100 kilometers is like 62 miles. That's normal highway speed. She was so confused about whether the road was dangerous. She drove super slowly and got honked at repeatedly. Then she finally asked someone why everyone was speeding. That's when she realized she'd lived there for 3 weeks, thinking Canadian roads were chaos. Temperature is another thing. Celsius makes no sense to Americans. She'd hear it was 25 degrees and think people would freeze. That's actually nice jacket weather or light sweater weather. An American moved to the UK and didn't own a heavy coat because he kept thinking the weather was colder than it actually was. He was dressing like it was Arctic conditions. He showed up to a casual dinner in a puffer jacket and winter hat when everyone else was in light sweaters. Temperature scales are real cultural barriers. What I've realized after hearing all these stories is that travel isn't about judging what's wrong. It's about understanding that every system makes sense to the people living in it. And that's kind of the whole conversation I'm always trying to have, so if that lands with you, I'd love to have you along for it. TV and media formats confused someone I knew. She went to Australia and wanted to watch familiar shows, but shows she watched at home started on different schedules or weren't available. The internet infrastructure is different. Australia gets delayed broadcasts. She couldn't understand why everything was behind. She thought they were purposely avoiding showing new content. No, it's just how licensing works in different countries. Alcohol and drinking culture is massive. An American went to a bar in Germany and ordered a beer. He got handed a 1-liter Stein. He thought it was just a normal beer. He was not prepared. He drank half of it and was way too drunk, way too fast. He kept saying, "Why is the beer so strong?" The beer wasn't stronger. He just received a liter instead of a pint. His mistake, not the beer's. Here's where cultural norms get really interesting. I worked at an office in Copenhagen where we had this American intern. She would make coffee in the break room and leave the pot empty. Just empty. She figured someone would make more. That's not how it works. You make coffee, you're responsible for maintaining the coffee supply. She created a mini culture conflict just by not thinking about shared responsibility. Her coworkers were annoyed. She was confused by their annoyance. Quiet hours in apartment buildings absolutely destroyed an American family living in Vienna. They moved into a nice apartment building and didn't understand that there are actual quiet hours where you can't make noise. After 10 p.m., no loud sounds. No vacuum, no music, no loud conversations. The American family played music, watched TV with volume up, and let their kids run around. Their neighbors complained. They thought their neighbors were uptight. The neighbors thought they were inconsiderate. Both were right in their own way. The family just didn't grow up understanding that shared living spaces have rules about noise. Shoes indoors is a whole thing. My cousin's American roommate in Tokyo kept wearing shoes inside their shared apartment. In Japanese culture, you remove shoes when entering a home. It's basic. But the American kept walking around in shoes, confused about why her roommate kept hinting that she should take them off. She felt like she was being weird if she took them off. She had it backward. She thought the roommate was being strange. They were actually both uncomfortable. Punctuality differences are huge. I watched an American show up 45 minutes late to a dinner in Germany. She thought fashionably late was universal. Germans don't do that. If you say 7 p.m., you arrive at 7 p.m. Not 7:15, not 7:45, 7 o'clock. Her German friend was worried something had happened to her. She'd already eaten. The American didn't understand why punctuality was such a big deal. In Germany, it's respect. In America, it's sometimes seen as relaxed or flexible. Beach culture was weird for an American girl who went to Europe. On Mediterranean beaches, people go topless. It's normal and not sexual. She was shocked by this. She kept looking around like everyone was breaking a rule. No one else cared. It was just normal beach culture. But she came from a country where that would be illegal. She couldn't relax because she was so focused on the cultural difference. She eventually got used to it, but it took time. Public bathrooms are actually a huge adjustment. American public bathrooms have big gaps in the stall doors. You can basically see inside. European bathrooms have doors that actually close. They provide privacy. An American used a public bathroom in Paris and was shocked by how much privacy they got. She said it was weird. I had to explain that maybe the weird part is how exposed American bathroom stalls make you. Restaurant culture is different. In America, waiters bring you the check unprompted. They want you gone so they can get the next table. In many European countries, you have to ask for the check. The waiter won't rush you. You can sit as long as you want. An American family ate at a restaurant in Italy and waited 45 minutes for their check. They thought the waiter was ignoring them. They were actually just respecting the family's time to enjoy their meal and company. It's a completely different relationship between server and customer. Portion sizes shocked an American in France. French meals are smaller. The portions aren't huge like American restaurants. There's more courses, but each one is smaller. She thought she was being served a kid's portion. That's just how it works there. Quality over quantity. After a 3-course meal, she was actually quite full. But her American brain was confused the whole time. Library culture is interesting. An American student went to a library in the UK and tried to eat lunch at her desk. She was politely asked to stop. Libraries, there are silent spaces. You don't eat at desks. You definitely don't have conversations. It's treated like a temple of quiet. She was offended at first, like they were being mean. But it's just respect for others who are studying. The rule makes sense when you think about it. Greeting culture varies so much. An American guy went to France and tried to hug everyone upon meeting them. French people greet with cheek kisses. He went for the hug and it was awkward. He was trying to be friendly. They thought he was invasive. Neither was wrong, just different. He learned to adapt, but the initial encounters were uncomfortable. Business card exchange nearly caused a diplomatic incident. I watched an American casually stuff a business card in his pocket when a Japanese businessman handed it to him. In Japanese culture, you receive a business card with both hands and examine it respectfully. Just shoving it in your pocket is super disrespectful. The Japanese man's face fell. My American coworker had no idea he'd done anything wrong. Asking for the bill in restaurants varies wildly. In some countries, you ask. In others, you wait. In America, you might signal to the waiter. In France, you might snap your fingers, which is rude elsewhere. An American tried to snap at a waiter in Spain and got a lecture about respect. She just wanted her bill. She didn't mean to be rude, but the snap is considered calling someone like a dog. Different methods, totally different meanings. Gift-giving norms are wild. An American went to an Indian wedding and brought a generic gift from Target. She didn't know there are specific rituals and price ranges expected in Indian culture. She felt cheap when she saw other gifts. No one blamed her, but she learned that gift-giving etiquette is cultural. You can't just apply American norms to every situation. Phone culture in public is interesting. Americans talk on the phone everywhere. On trains, on buses, at restaurants, louder conversations. Other countries keep phone calls private. An American got really annoyed looks on a London train for talking loudly on the phone. She thought people were being rude. They thought she was being inconsiderate. Again, both perspectives are valid. Different norms. Here's the thing about all of this. Americans aren't stupid or rude. They just grow up in a massive country with its own way of doing things. That way works perfectly fine. It's not wrong. It's just one way. And when you step outside of it, you realize that there are about 200 other ways that work equally well. The world doesn't run on American time. It doesn't use American measurements. It doesn't have American banking systems or tipping customs or email etiquette or business card receiving methods. For Americans who've never left, this is shocking, but it's also actually kind of beautiful. It means the world is diverse. It means there are options. It means innovation happens everywhere, not just in America. My favorite part about collecting these stories is seeing Americans come back and tell them themselves. They become funny. They become self-aware. An American who's confused about the metric system can laugh at themselves eventually. A girl who didn't understand quiet hours can admit it was ridiculous. My brother still brings up the time he called his boss at 3 a.m. like it's the most hilarious thing ever. Travel and living abroad change people. They make you realize that what you grew up thinking was normal is just normal for one place. There are other normals, and none of them are better, just different. That's actually the whole point of seeing the world. I knew a guy who spent his whole life thinking the world should adapt to him. Came back from 6 months in Germany completely changed. He said, "The world doesn't care about my expectations. It's just operating. I'm the one who has to adjust." That's the real lesson here. That's the real lesson. And honestly, it's the reason I keep doing this. Because every story like this reminds us that growth happens when we stop expecting the world to work our way and start paying attention to how it actually does. If that resonates with you, there are a lot more stories like this waiting. The funniest part is that this goes both ways. Every country sends confused people to America too. Europeans are baffled by American portion sizes, American customer service, American tipping culture, American work hours, American suburbs, American coffee, American ice in every single drink. They're equally confused. We're all just doing our things and not realizing it's weird to everyone else. One more quick story to wrap this up. My girlfriend's brother moved to Japan last year. He called us after the first week absolutely panicked because he couldn't figure out the toilet. Not the squat toilet thing, the regular toilet. It had like 15 buttons: heated seat, bidet, spray settings, temperature controls, music. He spent a full 5 minutes pressing buttons trying to figure out how to flush. He eventually called his landlord. The landlord just showed him the flush button. It was super simple. He'd overlooked it because he was overwhelmed by all the extra features. That's basically every American abroad right there. Overwhelmed by features and systems they don't understand. But that's the cool part. Eventually you figure it out. You learn. You adapt. And then you come home and tell these ridiculous stories forever. Because honestly, these stories never stop coming. Every day there's an American somewhere being confused about measurements, or being too loud during quiet hours, or leaving money on the table wrong. And every day there's someone else from another country being confused about America. It's endless. It's universal. And it's